Alrighty folks, so in today's video, I'm going to walk you through step by step what to do when it comes to planning, prepping, and ultimately planting your garlic to ensure you get the best harvest possible this year. And for any of you that are new to the channel, I'm Jordan from Mind and Soil here, and two things that I absolutely love are gardening's mental health benefits and gardening experiments. So if either of those resonate with you, I really encourage you to subscribe to our channel here because we've got over 150 videos that I think you'll really enjoy. And so to get really beautiful heads of garlic coming out of the garden next season, the planting process has a huge impact on how well they grow. And so the very first thing that we need to think through is what variety do we want to plant? And on this front, there's two primary families of garlic, hardneck and softneck. And while there are some differences, the really only important difference that you need to worry about is that hardneck varieties are much more hardy and will grow well in cool climates, versus softneck varieties are going to be better suited for warmer climates. So if you're in, say, zone 9 and above, then a softneck variety could be a good option to go with. But if you're in zone 8 and below, like myself in zone 7B, then I recommend choosing a hardneck variety to ensure that it'll survive the winter. And a couple of the most popular hardneck varieties include chestnut, majestic, and of course the crown jewel, red Russian. So for myself personally, I only grow red Russian garlic in my garden because of how wonderful it tastes, how well it stores, and how hardy it is. And that's also the variety that we include in our garlic kits, which you can check out on our website. Now, what's even more important than the variety of garlic is that you plant the biggest jumbo cloves possible. And I did a whole experiment on this. I'm going to link the video down in the description of this video here. But essentially what I found out was simply by planting larger jumbo cloves, it resulted in those heads being more than 2 times the size of smaller or regular cloves. So how do you then get those jumbo cloves into your garden? Well, there's 2 ways that we can go about doing this. The first option would just be to head to our website because we do sell packs of 10 jumbo cloves that I've handpicked and sourced myself. Alternatively, the second option would be to buy more heads of garlic than you plan on planting, and then disassemble each of those one by one and put aside the largest jumbo cloves of garlic. Keep those ones for planting in the garden and keep the smaller ones for ultimately using in the kitchen. So now with your jumbo cloves on hand, the next thing to determine is where in the garden are you going to plant your garlic. And on this front, garlic loves a full sun environment. The more sun you give them, the better they'll grow. So either dedicate some of your sunniest spot in the garden to your garlic this coming season, or companion plant them along some of their favorite plants such as tomatoes and basil. And if you want to see a whole video on how to go about companion planting garlic with other crops, go ahead and let me know down in the comments of this video, and that's something I could put together before the end of the season here. But with our garlic cloves on hand and ultimately knowing that we're going to get them into a sunny spot, the next big question is, when do we go about planting them? And for our garlic to ultimately develop those big, beautiful heads that we're looking for, we need them to go through a cold period, which is of course winter, and therefore we need to plant them in the fall time. And on this front, it truly is a season in that you can plant them at any point from the beginning of October till the middle of November. So for myself in zone 7B, I'm going to be aiming for October 15th this year. And so with our planting date determined, the next thing that we're going to do is prep the soil. Now garlic, it loves a loose and fertile soil to be growing in. And keep in mind that if you're planting it into a garden bed that has been growing crops all through the spring and summer, that soil might be a little bit depleted. It's important to think about our soil like a bank account. As the plants grow, they make withdrawals of nutrients and water. Therefore, before we plant our garlic, it's really important that we make a deposit or an investment into that soil to top it up with nutrients so that the garlic has everything that it needs. And so for established garden beds, all that you need to do is add 1 to 2 inches of compost onto the top of this bed. But if you're establishing a garden bed for the very first time, my recommendation would be to go with 75% compost and 25% vermiculite as your soil blend. Once you've mixed up your compost and vermiculite, all that you need to do is dump that into either the raised bed or the container that you're going to be growing your garlic in this season. And this blend has been performing so well for me in soil experiments that I've been running this past season that I'm actually going to pull all of the soil out of the bed that I plant my garlic into and replace it with that blend of 75% compost and 25% vermiculite. Alrighty, so we've got 4 super quick final tips to be going through when it comes to planting our garlic. And keep in mind that if we utilize all of these tips when it comes to planting the garlic, then the vast majority of the work is done for ultimately getting big and beautiful heads out of the garden this coming summer. So hang with me here for these 4 final tips. And the first of those is spacing and depth. And so in the area that you're going to plant your garlic, what you want to begin doing is measuring out 6-inch spacing intervals. And to do this, all that you need to do is grab the measuring tape on the back of your hory knife and measure 6 inches over. Then dig down to a depth of 4 inches, as we'll be planting them 4 inches deep. And then measure another 6 inches over and 4 inches down, and continue in that manner for the entire space that you're planting. And then come back to the first hole and now go 6 inches up and 4 inches down, and simply continue along in this manner until the space has a nice grid to it. Now, if you want to squeeze a few more heads in there, but maybe they'll be a little bit smaller, then what you can do is what's called 6-inch off-centered spacing. And so now with the grid that you've just made at 6-inch spacing, you're going to do another hole right in the middle of the holes that you've just dug. And this creates an off-centered row and allows you to squeeze a whole additional row of garlic in between each of the 6-inch rows that you've already set up. I did this as an experiment last year, and the link to that video is down in the description of this video here. But to quickly summarize, the cloves planted at 6 inches had an average weight of 52 grams compared to the 6-inch off-centered spacing, which had an average weight of 41 grams. However, I was only able to fit 78 cloves into the bed when using 6-inch spacing, compared to 138 cloves when using 6-inch off-centered spacing. So the total harvest went from 4,056 grams to 5,658 grams for the exact same amount of space when using 6-inch off-centered spacing. And so this coming season, I'm actually going to do the entirety of my bed at 6-inch off-centered spacing so that I can get a little bit more volume out of the bed. And so with the spacing now complete, what we're going to do before putting our garlic cloves into the ground is add a half handful of worm castings to each of the holes. All that you need to do is grab a little handful of our worm castings and then just simply sprinkle it into each of the holes that you're planting into. This ensures that the garlic clove is absolutely surrounded with beneficial bacteria and microbes right from the beginning of its growth to help it grow as healthy and big as possible. And now the second last piece, the moment that we've been waiting for, it's time to get our garlic cloves into the ground. And so what you're going to do is grab your garlic clove and simply place it into the ground at that depth of 4 inches down. And as you do this, make sure that you have the flat end facing down and the pointy end facing up. The flat end is where the roots are going to come out of, and the pointy end is where the garlic stem is going to grow out of, break through the soil, and then begin to absorb the sun in the springtime as it puts on all of its growth. And so our final tip for today here is to put down 3 to 4 inches of a mulch. You could go with something like straw, or my personal favorite is to use a leaf mulch with all the leaves coming down right now. All that you need to do is simply spread this across the entirety of the bed, and this is going to help insulate both the garlic as well as the microbes in the soil and allow them to stay active, working away a little bit later into the season. And one additional thing that you can do here is put some landscape fabric down over top of these leaves and weight it down with some rocks on the end. This is going to help ensure that the leaves don't blow away as those winter winds roll through. And then what I always do on January 1st is I pull off that landscape fabric so that the garlic cloves can begin to grow through the surface as the temperatures begin to rise as we move into the springtime. But folks, you now have everything that you need to get your garlic into the ground and really set it up for an amazing season ahead. So if you have any questions here, go ahead and leave those down in the comments. I'll be happy to help out any way that I can. Additionally, if you're curious about what happens in the springtime as they begin to poke through the surface, then simply check out this video right over here. Other than that, that's everything that I wanted to cover off on for today. Hope this has been helpful. Go get your hands dirty, and I'll see you soon.